The jet on top of this pedestal is a Canadair CT-133 Silver Star, the Canadian-built version of the American T-33 trainer. This plane was presented to the town of Gimli by the officers and men of Canadian Forces Base Gimli. The plaque on its base reads, "To commemorate many years of friendship and cooperation." Gimli's Air Force Training School had closed at the end of World War II in 1945, and for 5 years the airstrip was quiet, save for some air cadet training. It was another faraway war that led to its reopening. When the Cold War turned hot in 1950 on the Korean Peninsula, Canada, along with its NATO allies, needed trained pilots fast. Across the country, several World War II airfields were reactivated, and Gimli was one of them. It was now the jet era, and the aircraft they trained on was the Silver Star, a sleek, fast, two-seat trainer that was the backbone of RCAF pilot training for the next 20 years. Soon after, No. 3 Advanced Flying School was added to Gimli, and focused on techniques like aerobatics, dogfighting, and formation flying. Just like during the Second World War, in addition to taking on Canadian students, the base trained pilots from NATO countries like Britain, Denmark, France, Italy, Norway, and Turkey. Gimli, a town of just a few thousand people on the shores of Lake Winnipeg, was once again a key node in the Western Alliance's air defenses. In 1959, the instructors and pilots of No. 3 School formed an aerobatic display team. They called themselves the Gimli Smokers, and flew their Silver Stars in tight formations over air shows across Canada. Sometimes, the base also hosted the famous Red Knight, the RCAF's solo act aerobatic flyer. Daredevil aerobatics came with great risks. In 1963, the Red Knight, Flight Lieutenant James Morin, was performing a routine at Gimli. During a Cuban 8 maneuver, he lost control of his plane and was killed when he crashed on the runway. In July 1970, a different T-33 came down directly in Gimli. The pilot lost control and bailed out, and the plane hit the ground directly behind the North American Lumber Yard on Center Street, narrowly missing the gas storage tanks at a Shell station. Thankfully, nobody was killed, but it was an event many in the town would remember. By the 1960s, Gimli had become one of the busiest airports in Canada. The base employed 250 locals and put roughly $4 million a year into the local economy. The base had its own school, its own 50-bed hospital, and extensive modern housing for staff and pilots. Today, the married quarters are now the neighborhood of Aspen Park. It even had its own golf course. Life on the base was closely tied to life in Gimli, with all kinds of community activities organized to bring the two together. The base's newspaper was even called the Framfari, the Icelandic word for progress. It was an homage to one of the town's first newspapers back in the 1870s, founded by the Icelandic settlers. In 1967, the future looked bright when a 4-year, $10 million investment plan was announced to modernize and expand the base. Then, in 1970, 3 years into the plan, the federal government abruptly changed its mind and decided to close the base the next year, part of a general drawdown of the Canadian Forces. Gimli's mayor, Daniel Sigmundson Sr., tried to fight. He called it a hell of a battle, a political struggle. It was the only major base the RAF had ever closed. He led a committee to Ottawa to fight for the base. It wasn't successful. It was a huge blow to Gimli. A local historian described 1971 as that year during which Canadian Forces Gimli gradually folded its wings and stole away, with family after family departing until farewells became so commonplace that the later departures went without the traditional ceremonies and parties, because so many of their good friends had already gone. The federal government offered money to convert the site into an industrial park. The base's western runway, which had just been resurfaced, was eventually handed to a sports car club. It became a racetrack. The jet on this pedestal was the base's going-away gift. In 1983, when Captain Pearson and First Officer Quintal placed their last hopes for survival on Gimli's old runway, they could thank the base that had closed 12 years earlier.